But I do think that the idea of an eclipse is the perfect analogy. Perfect analogy, because we were told all March, and we keep having it kind of shoved down our throats that you are going to love women's basketball, and you are going to completely dissociate yourself from men's basketball. Because men are bad and women are good. That's actually kind of what feels like it's happened. And it's interesting. Like, I don't think the men's ratings are going to be what they normally are on CBS. But the little secret is that, and that's what I love, ESPN is saying, man, look at these ratings for women's college basketball on ESPN. The game was on ABC. Now, I know it's the same company. I understand. But it's not the same network. And network TV massively outrates cable TV. And, of course, ESPN generally outrates other cable networks on cable. Tonight it's on TBS, the men's national championship. And ESPN is what's known, and cable, that's where you go for sports. That's what we grew up on. And Fox Sports 1 has made a lot of headway, and of course there's other cable networks like TBS that broadcast sports, but they're not ESPN, and no one would tell you otherwise. But it's really interesting that while the women had a back-to-back national champion, the men could very well have a back-to-back national championship as well. And we're told this is so much better than what you're going to watch. And I watched the women's basketball. I was thoroughly entertained by the fourth quarter of the Iowa game in the semifinals against UConn. And I didn't say I didn't think it was a foul. I didn't think it should be called a foul. Yesterday, I was thoroughly entertained by the first quarter of the South Carolina-Iowa game when Caitlin Clark went crazy and had 18 points. But after that, it became pretty obvious that one team, just like LSU last year, was better than Iowa. And that was South Carolina. But I can only surmise that it's one of those things where when you feel like a second-rate citizen for a long time, and now you get kind of some superior status that you want to make the other side, and for whatever reason it's considered the other side, pay for all the years of holding us down, when I don't think men's basketball ever did anything to hold down the women's game. It's just not as popular. Just not as fun to watch. Not as athletic. Not as well played. And I'm full admittance. I didn't think, a Purdue game is hard to watch. And sometimes tonight will be hard to watch because it's a slugging, physical style that Purdue likes to play. And UConn, I think their ratings haven't been great because they're just mollywomping everybody. But that game against Alabama was great. It was a fun watch. Ball was moving. It was awesome. Awesome. And, of course, UConn reigned supreme. I think they won by 16 points at the end of the game. Make no mistake about it. Caitlin Clark was an incredible player, an incredible human interest story, and now she's off to the WNBA to challenge conventional wisdom that, are we going to watch women's basketball in the summer? When traditionally we have not. We'll see. But there's no greater sign of eclipse than the fact that last night, if you were doing your job, and I was listening to another sports radio network, and I was with a friend, I'm in a car, and I'll say, let's see if they're doing their job. And they were not. Because if you're doing your job, you should lead with John Calipari. John Calipari is he's in the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame. He's taken UMass, Memphis, and, of course, Kentucky to Final Fours. He's won a national championship. And he left Kentucky for a conference rival in Arkansas. He did the reverse Coach Sutton, who I played for, who famously left Arkansas and said he would crawl to Lexington for the job. That did not sit well with everybody in Fayetteville. He's since been forgiven, and he's got deity status. But the point is that John Calipari, it's somewhere in the 8 $8.5 million per year, which is actually a raise from what he was previously making. 5 years, $40 million. Right? And at $8 million, he makes in 1 year what very likely all of the SEC women's coaches, including Dawn Staley, who makes $3.2 million, what they all make combined. And why does he make all that money? Because men's college basketball generates that much money, that much attention. Is it as good as it used to be? No. I do think that it's on its way back. Remember, you got the elimination of the G League Ignite, and I think you're going to have, I wouldn't be surprised if overtime's the next one to go, because players can make money in college on their NIL, on pay-for-play. The level of competition, and next year, Cooper Flagg, if you haven't heard of him, he's 6'10", he's from Maine, he's the best player in America by a mile. So he's 17 years old. He'll be playing in college basketball. Everybody will be paying attention. But last night, if you were doing your job, you should be talking about, can you believe that John Calipari left Kentucky where he was under contract and they would have had to buy him out? Like, there was no firing John Calipari this year because they owed him $33 million. So instead, he's like, you don't want me? I'll go get 40 some odd million over 5 years somewhere else. That's the story of the day. Sorry, it's not Caitlin Clark. If you're doing your job, it eclipses that story because it's a Hall of Fame coach, one of the absolute iconic and legendary programs, and leaving that program doing the opposite of what most people do. And we can get into was Arkansas better off? It could be a win-win-win. Everybody's happy. Kentucky gets a new coach. Arkansas gets a new coach. And all the college basketball coaches are happy because they're all going to get raises because all you got to do is mention someone's name in affiliation with the job and they automatically get a raise. And then, by the way, we got Caitlin Clark. I have a question for you. Jay Stu, I guess what the Outkick guys, one of them got into the press conferences at the women's Final Four and asked Dawn Staley about transgender women playing sports, right? And then I was just listening to Nick Cope, and Nick gave the update that there's Nick, what's the rule that was the rule that was passed about against transgender women playing transgender women playing in women's sports?
Yeah, so it was at the NAIA level, which, as you know, is below Division III. Only athletes whose biological sex is female and have not begun hormone therapy will be allowed to participate in women's sports at the NAIA level. All athletes may participate in male sports, but there's the designation for women's sports. So that covers about 83,000 collegiate athletes who play NAIA athletics. Yeah, now NAIA is small schools. Most of them, I believe, not all of them, many of them are very religious schools. I would say that's part of them. That's part of it. When I heard the question, I was like, kind of weird to ask. But then Dawn Staley was like, I don't care. You want to play? Here's Dawn Staley's answer. This is not yesterday. It's the day before. And the question.
Dan Zakrzewski, Outkick coach, you just talked about, what a massive weekend this is, obviously, for women's basketball, women's sports in general. One of the major issues facing women's sports right now is the discussion topic about the inclusion of transgender athletes, biological males, in women's sports. I was wondering if you would tell me your position on that issue.
Damn, you got deep on me, didn't you? I'm under the opinion of if you're a woman, you should play. If you consider yourself a woman and you want to play sports or vice versa, you should be able to play. That's my opinion. You want me to go deeper?
Do you think transgender women should be able to participate?
That's your question.
In
You
college
want
basketball?
me to ask? I mean, you want to ask, so I'll give you that. Yes. So now, the barnstorm of people are going to flood my timeline and be a distraction to me on one of the biggest days of our game, and I'm okay with that. I really am.
Well, first of all, I want to commend Don Staley on something, okay? Because, and listen, I didn't mind what Lisa Bluter did. She's the head coach at Iowa, where she's just like, we're on to Cincinnati, right? She basically did the we're on to Cincinnati thing. So she took her time, and Jay Stu, you thought the pause was significant.
My read on the pause is that she's making a calculation in her head. Like, I don't know if she gave the answer that she feels, but I think she made a calculation. Which side is going to give me more hell for which answer? And I think she chose the safe route. She chose the path of least resistance for her. But I don't know if she feels that way. I didn't get that feeling at all.
Why would you say that?
I don't know how any...
What, because it's an opinion that you think is different than the one she actually thinks? Like, listen, if you know anything about Don Staley has never... I don't agree with a lot of her opinions. She has never been shy to give them.
Yeah, no,
never been shy to give them.
That's probably right.
And I don't think it was she was a calculator. I thought she was like, look, you're getting ready for a national championship game. They're asking you all these different questions. You're talking about things, and all of a sudden, some guy asks you about transgender women, biological men playing women's sports. Which, by the way, like, look, here's the reality to it. It hasn't happened in women's basketball at the Division I level that I'm aware of, has it? I don't believe it has. So it's a little bit of a made-up debate. Now, it actually obviously has happened in swimming. You know what the interesting thing about swimming is? Everyone talks about, and rightfully so, like, I don't, if you want my stance, I don't believe that biological men, transgender women, should be allowed to participate in women's sports at the collegiate or the professional level. I do not. Sorry, again, I understand you've been through a lot. Whatever has made you go through that, I appreciate it, respect it. I don't think any of your rights should be taken away, but in this particular case, I can't do it. And I think most people feel that way, but I could be wrong. I just do. But I think what's fascinating about it is that like Riley Gaines, like, she finished fifth, she didn't finish second. It wasn't like Leah Thomas was the only person that beat her. But I actually thought Don Staley, she took her time, she took her breath, she's like, I didn't see that question coming. Okay. And then she actually gave the guy a chance to re-ask the question, to go deeper into it. I don't think it had anything to do with calculation. Don Staley's been somebody that's said whatever she's wanted for a long time, and that's clearly what she believes.